80.
My name is Crystal Mahaney. I'm the policy writer and researcher here at the Brief at the Policy Circle, and I'm really excited to be with you today. Thank you so much for those who have come and found me and said that you want to contribute to the briefs and talk about your industry with me. I've so appreciated those conversations. Thank you so much. If you are interested, please find me. I'll be floating around. I would love to connect. If you are interested in the field trips today, there are still some slots available. We have Globe Life and the Modern Museum. It's tour and a lunch. We depart from the lobby at 11 o'clock. If you are interested, please see the nice ladies out in the check-in desk, and we'd be happy to help you. So today I have the joy and pleasure to introduce Karith Foster, is the creator of the groundbreaking Inversity platform that seeks to revolutionize the way we address issues of diversity and leadership. She is the founder of FRAME, the Foster Russell Alliance for Meaningful Expression, and she's been featured in 2 hit documentaries, Can We Take a Joke and No Safe Spaces. Karith has a popular TEDx talk, The Art of Defying Stereotypes, Learning to Be Your True Voice. She has also made appearances in Imus in the Morning, Fox and Friends, MSNBC, Howard Stern, Comedy Central, VH1, and Oprah. Please welcome Karith to the stage.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Fantastic. I am so thrilled to have this time with you all and have a conversation about what the Policy Circle is really about, right? It's about owning our greatness. And this slide that we have up here that I'm going to, oops, hold on. We're going a little forward. Okay. I think we're all about the humble brag here. But I'm sharing this with you because I've had a pretty varied career. I've been doing stand-up comedy for 25 years. That's where I started when I was 5. So, but one of the reasons I highlight that, even though I don't do it as much anymore, is because it taught me to be a master communicator. Because the #1 rule in comedy, sure, it's be funny, but it's know your audience. And if we are going to own our greatness, we have to know who we're speaking to. We have to know how to convey an idea, a concept, be able to reach people at a level so that change can happen, right? Which is so much of what the Policy Circle is about. Now, we have a lot going on in our lives. Every single person in this room, I'm sure, is a type A personality in some form or fashion. So these are some fun facts about stress. Right? 36% of women report high levels of stress due to the acceptance of their own physical appearance, right? Their body image compared to only 23% of men. Women experience more stress-based self-rating stress survey. On a scale of 1 to 10, women were stressed at 5.1, where men are more like 4.4. And 66% of U.S. workers report they've lost sleep due to stress. This is what stress looks like. Right, for a lot of us. This is also what stress can look like. How dare you call me mentally unstable on the day of my cat's quinceañera? So I want us to help get past the stress factor, but I also want to address maybe why stress is such a big part of what's going on in our lives. Like, what's really at the root of it? And I believe that the root cause of stress is this idea of perfectionism. And this idea that if we don't do something perfectly, then something is wrong with us, then we failed. Now, the book I wrote, which you all got a copy of, and I hope you really enjoy, I feel like it was so divinely inspired. That came to me out of a moment of just ultimate feeling of failure, a feeling that I wasn't enough. And I realized that the catalyst behind that was feeling that I wasn't doing things perfectly. I wasn't the perfect daughter, or I hadn't been the perfect student, or the perfect friend, or perfect girlfriend, or perfect wife, or perfect mother, or perfect boss, or employee. And I realized I'm not alone in this. If I'm feeling this way, a bunch of other people are too. And so that was really where this comes from. So if you want to take this Perfectionist Quiz, you're more than welcome to. You don't have to do it right now, but you can scan this code. I'll give you a second to do that, if you wanted to. It is fun, and at the end you will find out where you rank on your perfectionism scale, if you will. and there'll be a fun video response to where you land. And if by chance you didn't get this, I'll make sure that we can get it to you afterwards, certainly. But some of the questions on there will be, when I've made a mistake, I think about it consistently and for some time afterward. I worry more about getting something done right than actually getting it done. It's not progress unless it's way better than what I did before. Are we relating to this? This is resonating? So yeah, if you said yes, first of all, I want to say thank you for being honest, right? And vulnerable, because it takes a lot to admit that we've kind of have this hanging over our heads. And congratulations, it's official, you're certified human beings, right? We are all coming from this space and place. So I want you to forget what you were taught about perfection, because guess what, y'all? It's a lie. Perfection is not a real thing. Striving for perfection is the fastest one-way ticket to insanity that you can hop on that train for. Now, striving for excellence, yes, absolutely. But perfection, that bar will always change. That carrot will always move faster than you can get to. So in the book and in this conversation, I want to go through getting back to the basics of how you can own your greatness so that perfectionism, doesn't get the best of you. And the first thing I want to say is be kind, right? I mean, we all know this. We've been taught this growing up. But when most of us really go out of our way to be kind to others, especially the people that we love and care about, and sometimes even strangers, which is cool. But y'all, we got to be kind to ourselves. We cannot wake up every morning, look in the mirror, and say something so awful that if a complete stranger said it to us, we'd be like, who raised you? And yet we do that on a daily basis. So we have to get into the practice of being kind to ourselves, taking care of ourselves, making smart choices about what we put in our body, not just the food, but the social material, the media, right? All of this impacts how we can show up as our great selves. And of course, chocolate. Like, you can't say no to chocolate. I think that's showing yourself a little kindness. Next, you have to ask, right? And the question is, ask for what? Well, you have to ask, why is something happening for me versus to me? And how that shows up in owning our greatness is because when we can juxtapose those two little prepositions, we can take ourselves out of a victimhood mentality and victimhood state, right? And we can own what is going on around us. Not that anybody asks for horrible things to happen to them or bad circumstances, especially, as children when we're vulnerable. But the idea is to look at a circumstance that you got through, that you survived. And instead of saying, why did that happen to me? Why did it happen for me? It happened for me to show me how strong I was. It happened for me to show me that nothing was going to break me and that I'm still here. And that is so powerful, and that is so empowering, and that shuttles you into owning your greatness. Now, another ask is, ask for what you want. For some reason, a lot of women, we have trouble doing that. We have trouble who in this room actually goes into a restaurant, famished, sits down, and tells the server to bring you just anything? Hopefully none of us. If you do, you're very brave, and I want your autograph. Most of us don't ask for what we want. You have to ask for what you want, and you have to be specific, because that is how the world works. Now, I learned this lesson the hard way about 10 and a half years ago, because she's turning 10 in a couple of days. I was 6 months pregnant in Southern California. I was miserable. And if you've ever been pregnant or know people that have been pregnant, the body does fun stuff. Some stuff happens involuntarily, some stuff stops happening. And I was miserable. And every time I saw my husband walk to the bathroom with a paper under his arm, I wanted to throat punch him, because that wasn't happening for me, okay? We're going to keep it clean. But it was my birthday, and he says, honey, what do you want for your birthday? I said, I made the mistake of saying, surprise me. So I hear him on the phone a couple days later going, oh, she can't? Yeah, no, she's pregnant. Yeah, no, she'll be breastfeeding. And in my mind, I'm thinking, maybe he got me something awesome, like skydiving, like something I clearly couldn't do pregnant. But then I was like, what does breastfeeding have to do with that? That's a weird image I don't even want anybody to think of. And I go, honey, what did you get me for my birthday? He goes, because he was so upset. He was so disappointed. And he literally looks at me, he goes, well, you know how you said you've been having trouble going? I said, oh, dear God, what did you do? He said, I got you a colonic. I said, a what? He goes, I got you a, I go, no, I heard you the first time, Jackrabbit. Jewelry didn't cross your mind? And he literally, he goes, well, I don't understand why you're so upset. If you think about it, it's really like a day spa for your backside. I go, and you're really going there with this? I go, you know what? You take it, you use it. I was mad, y'all. Oh, I was livid. I go, you use it. He goes, well, that's the problem. I go, what's the problem? He goes, I bought 2. I said, why on God's green earth would you buy 2 colonics? And he looked at me and he goes, so we could go together. I've heard of couples massage. I've even heard of couples therapy. But I had yet to hear of couples colonic. And my mother, who's sitting right here today, she saved that marriage because she goes, sweetheart, that was a gift from his heart. Because it clearly wasn't from his head. And that is why we have to ask for what we want. That is a wild example, but one that you will never forget. So we also have to stop it. Y'all, we have to stop it. We have to put an end to judging one another, judging ourselves, right? Comparing ourselves to everyone here. Like, we can't help it. It's part of human nature. We see what somebody else is doing, that be inspired by that. But don't let that rob you of your greatness by, again, thinking that you're not enough, that you don't have enough to offer, that you're lacking in some form or capacity, because you're not. You're not. And of course, you know, when we get caught up in this idea of perfectionism, we let things go because, oh, if it's not going to be perfect, I'll wait till it's perfect. And then that causes huge amounts of procrastination, right? I'm guilty of it. We have to stop living in fear. That's the biggest ask. Stop living in fear. And that fear is the fear of not being enough. Because you are. Just the fact that you exist, that you are here right now, that means you have purpose. None of this is an accident. None of us are an accident. This is where I get to nerd out a little bit. See that little tiny peanut-shaped thing, the amygdala part of the brain? Wouldn't it be great if our brains really were that gorgeous? The amygdala is so, so powerful for as tiny as it is. And the amygdala, it regulates the emotional feelings that help us make decisions in the prefrontal cortex, executive decisions. And if we are coming from a place of fear and anxiety and stress, we will constantly operate in a place of fight, flight, or freeze. But if we learn to calm ourselves, if we learn to not let a situation or a person get the best of us, if we stand in our greatness, the amygdala gets to do its job. And we get to show up in a healthy, thoughtful, clear way. So perfection paralysis, this is something that happens to a lot of us. And unfortunately, that slide decided to do that too. But that's the terminology I call it when, again, we think we're, you know, it's not going to be perfect, so we don't do it, or it ends up taking a lot of time and we freeze. We get into that state where things don't happen. There's something that we can do, that we can all do to shift our nervous system, to rebalance, to create homeostasis. And there's an exercise that I want to show you real quick. We won't have time to actually do it, but I do want you to walk through it with me, because what we do is sit in your chair, cross your legs at the ankles, hold your hands out in front of you. Now, cross them over one another and pull them in like a pretzel, so like this. And when you put your head down to your hands, to the knuckles, and you just take deep breaths, and if you can do this exercise for up to 5 minutes, this is the equivalent of doing 45 minutes to an hour of meditation. That is how powerful we are, how powerful our bodies are, and how we can realign our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous systems, which get out of whack when we are stressed, when we are trying to be perfect. So we have to ignore the critics, y'all. And usually, yes, the haters are real, they're out there, but the biggest critic is usually us, right? We are the first person to beat ourselves up, to say, oh, I should have done better. It should have, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Being the Monday morning quarterback. We have to recognize that is a horrible habit. And when you recognize it, the beauty is you can then start to mitigate it. When it starts to creep up, you can push it to the side. You have to let it roll off your back, right? Like a duck. You have to. You have to, because you're robbing yourself of standing in your greatness. Celebrate your victories. We do not do that enough. Again, we're the first people to, someone gives us a compliment, deflect it, right? We generally don't think that what we did was amazing because so-and-so over here, the comparing, right, they did that. I just did this little thing. No, celebrate the victories. Celebrate the stuff that's big. Celebrate the small stuff. If you caught yourself saying something cruel in the mirror, celebrate the fact that you caught yourself, right? This is really important because we have to exercise this like a muscle. We have to build ourselves up. And again, that's how we get to stand and own our greatness. I'm not saying everything has to be good all the time and a party and woohoo. Like, bad stuff is going to happen. We're going to be disappointed. We're going to have things that did not go the way we planned or intended. And it's okay to have a pity party. It really is. But make sure that you put a time frame on it, right? And sometimes, instead of having the pity party, think about how you're going to have a damn it, I did it party. Because we don't do that enough either. I want y'all to start saying yes. We had such a beautiful conversation. Well, we've had so many beautiful conversations this past weekend of people who stepped out of their comfort zone. Ian Rowe was talking about courage and having the courage to do things. Not just for other people, but we need to have courage to do things for ourselves. I had an incident several years ago. Do y'all know who this is in the picture with me? Most of you know it's Larry the Cable Guy, comedian, voice of Mater from the Disney movies, right? He's a very dear friend of mine. And we met many, many years ago at the Montreal Comedy Festival before he blew up. But I was with him on that ride. And when he was, really getting up there, Comedy Central was going to do a roast of him. And my manager got a call saying, hey, Karith, you want to sit on the dais for the Larry the Cable Guy roast? And my first thought was, I went into the space of, but I've only been doing comedy 5.5 years. They say it takes 7 years to find your voice. 7 years before you can master, owning the stage and being the headliner, if you will, right? I let all that, and then I conferred with other comedians who'd been doing it years before I had. And some of them, hindsight, looking back, may have been jealous because they had been in the game 3 times longer than me. Some of them, it may have been their own inhibitions and fear because they all said, well, you only get one chance to make a first impression. Don't want to screw it up. And of course, that fed into my fear, right, of not being enough. How am I going to write all these jokes? How am I going to, I don't want to blow it in front of Comedy Central. These people could get me a sitcom. I know who they are. It'll happen again. I didn't want to say no. I really didn't. But I was so terrified that I didn't know what else to do, and I turned it down. I wish my manager at the time had just made me do it. I wish he'd just been like, no, you're doing this. We'll figure it out. Unfortunately, he was a little wet behind the ears. And I said no. Didn't feel good, but I said no. A few years later, I'm in LA. I see a friend of mine is working for got a job writing for Comedy Central. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I go, what show are you writing for? He goes, well, it's not really a show. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm writing for the roast. I said, I'm sorry, you're what? And like a gut punch, I realized right then and there, if I had said yes, I wouldn't have been alone. I would have had support. And I needed a lesson that big. It hurt, but I needed a lesson that big to propel me into a space of saying yes every time something excites me and scares the hell out of me. Every time something that happens that I want to do, but I have no idea how I'm going to do it or get there, I still say yes, because this is what I believe. God, the universe rises to meet you. You just have to say yes first to open that door. Now, that doesn't mean you just sit back and let it all happen. You have to be proactive, obviously. But you have to say yes to yourself. You have to own that greatness and know that you will be able to accomplish what's been put in front of you. Now, as Mayor Maddie Parker said, you've got to say no sometimes too. And it's really challenging to say no because we want to do and be everything for everybody. But owning your greatness means standing in that space of boundaries, right? So say no when you need to, especially if you know you're going to be spreading yourself too thin. But say yes when it scares the hell out of you, but you want to do it. So I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your time and your attention. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and that you leave here knowing in your heart and your soul how powerful you are and that you can own your greatness in every aspect of your life. Thank you so very much, everyone.
Please welcome to the stage co-founder and board chair of the